Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. VMware NSX Legacy Load Balancing is going away, migrate to AVI. We have Pablo Bascario, Product Manager, and Saley Moore, Solutions Architect, joining us today. We are with the VMware NSX Advanced Load Balancer team, also known as AVI. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Before we start this presentation, we want to point out that you can use the Q&A window to enter your questions during the presentation, and we will answer them at the end during our Q&A period. The webinar is being recorded and will be available online on demand. We will send out a link to the presentation afterwards. If you find this content useful, please feel free to share this link with your colleagues. And now, to get us started talking about the AVI solution, here is Saley Moore.
Hi guys. So in this session, we are going to cover an architecture of AVI, and then I'll do a quick demo of how the user interface looks like. Then I will pass it on to Pablo, who will talk more about the NSX load balancer to AVI migration with the demo. So just a background about AVI. AVI has been in the load balancer space for almost about a decade now. Even though the name has NSX in it, we are a standby product. And the NSX-T load balancer is end of life, which was announced in December 2021. Hence, this session about migration to AVI. So let's talk a bit about how the architecture looks like. So with AVI, what we have done is we have separated the control plane from the data plane. So we have a control plane for management and a data plane for your data traffic. AVI controller and AVI service engines, these are the two main components of the AVI architecture. So the controller will sit in the AVI control plane and the service engines will sit in the data plane. Now, the AVI controller is the brain of the system. So this is where all the configuration is done, all the policies reside, and this is the single REST API endpoint into the system. The service engines, they are stateless, they are elastic. Now, the AVI controller will manage the entire life cycle of the service engine. So what that means is it will scale them up, scale them down, spin them up, spin them down based on your requirements, based on the requirements of the application. What it also means is you can go anywhere from one load balancer to 100 within a span of few minutes. And as an administrator, it doesn't actually change any work from your end, or it doesn't put any additional workload on the administrator. Now, if there is an issue with the controller or the AVI controller, your data traffic will not be affected because of that separation of management control plane and data plane. Now, if the service engine is impacted, what the controller will do, it will auto heal. So it will spin up another service engine and you will be right back to the capacity you want to be at. So the fabric will increase and decrease based on your requirements. Now, these service engines can be deployed in any environment. So be it on-prem, be it public cloud, be it in any form, so in a VM form or a container form or EC2 instance, bare metals. So you can have your one controller on-prem, for example, and connect that controller to all the other environments that you're working with. So NSX, private cloud, public cloud, all of that.
And Saley, I apologize, Saley, for interrupting. Can you make sure that you're sharing the slides as well?
Yep, it is.
Slides might be seen.
Are you seeing the slides?
I'm making sure the attendees can see it.
Okay. So let me build up this slide. Now, as the service engines are passing on the traffic, they also collect the telemetry information and push it on to the controller. And that information about the logs will be displayed in a very human readable format. So, and I will show you that in the demo, but it contains end-to-end timings of every transaction that passes on to the service engine. We also have cloud services, so a Pulse platform, where you can get services like proactive support or bot management. We also have hosted controllers as a part of the cloud services offering. Now, because we are all API based, you can also automate things. You can bring up the entire infrastructure using Ansible, Terraform, or whatever automation script that you prefer. Now, I also want to cover some of the myth busters. So Avi is a standalone project and is not packaged as part of NSX-T. Avi does not, so does Avi work only with NSX-T? No, it works with all the environments that you have, be it public cloud, be it AWS, Azure, GCP, vCenter, on-prem. It's not specific just to NSX. You don't have to install any kind of agent. All we need is two components. So you have to deploy the Avi controller, which comes in the OVA form, and then the service engines, which depends on what your environment. If it's AWS, then it will be an AMI image for EC2 instance. If it's vCenter, it will be in VM form factor. You do not have to buy NSX-T to run Avi. Avi has its own separate licensing format. Avi is not the only replacement for load balancing. And we also do multi-cloud, like I said earlier. So it's not specific to just one environment. So with that, I'm going to move to the next slide. So again, we are all REST API based. So we work well with Ansible playbooks. We have published Terraform modules on our GitHub. We do custom automation too. So if we have a specific team that will help you with scripting, with your playbooks to build up your entire infrastructure through automation. So with that, I am going to move to the demo part. So hope you're screening my browser now. So this is the first screen you will see when you log into an Avi controller. What we are doing here is we are presenting a single pane of glass for all your virtual applications. Now, be your virtual application or VS be deployed in an Azure environment, an AWS environment, or on-prem, you will see all of that as soon as you log in. Now, all of these virtual services have a score and some kind of color attached to it. This is to make it easier to understand the health of your application. So let's take an example of the first one, Avi demo. So to calculate this health score, we take into consideration the performance of the health score. What is your end user experience? Are they able to access this application fast enough, slow? What are the problems there? So all of that is considered under performance. Under resource penalty, we take into consideration the underlying resources. So how's your CPU? How's your memory? Now, if there are any issues with that, then you get a negative score or a penalty. Anomaly penalty is any change of behavior. So let's say for this particular application, every morning from 9 to 11, there is no traffic. The traffic is very minimal, nothing crazy. And then one fine day, traffic is heading through the roof. So that is a change in behavior, and that will be considered as an anomaly. So you will get a negative score. Now, if you are expecting this traffic, this event, you can change or customize your profile accordingly. Under security penalty, we consider if your certificates are about to expire, if there is a DDoS attack, all of the security related aspects will be considered under this. Then the total health score is your performance score minus all these penalties. So again, it's an easier way to understand the health of all your applications. The next thing I wanted to show you is we have different views. So the tree view is where you will get a logical display of this entire virtual service. So what are my pool members? What are the backend servers? Which service engine this virtual service is sitting on? So all the service engines will be at the bottom. So this, my Avi demo virtual service is sitting on these SEs. Now, how do you connect into these different environments? So go to infrastructure, clouds, and as you can see, I have different environments. I have AWS, Azure, VMware, also NSX-T. So all you have to give is the credentials and the API endpoint of those environments, and it creates that it creates access to those environments. For the service engines now, we also have something called a service engine groups. What that means is you can group together a bunch of service engines and dedicate that group to a particular application or share that group within a bunch of applications. This makes it easier for managing the service engine, managing the applications, and also tremendously helpful during upgrades. So if you want to upgrade a particular application and service engines attached to it, you don't have to create a maintenance window for all your tenants or all your applications, right? Just that specific group, you can just go ahead and upgrade that group. We also have GSLB. So if you have two different sites, one in North America, the other one is in Europe, and you want the customers from those geolocations to go to specific applications. So let's say a user from Texas, you want to go to the Texas center, you have the capability to configure those geolocation-based traffic. Then we also have WAF. So if you can see this last virtual service, it has a shield, a blue shield around it. So that means that it's protected with a WAF profile. Now, after talking to a bunch of customers, what we have realized that in legacy applications, WAF is not used as much, and that is because the load balancers are boxed in. As we all know, WAF requires a lot of CPU cycles. So in case of an attack, it's going to take all those CPU cycles, and it may affect the experience, the user experience of the application. With Avi, we overcome this challenge because of our scale-out nature, right? If we need extra cycles, we will spin up an extra service engine and deal with that attack. So it works very well with our architecture. Now, the most interesting part about Avi is the logs. So we track every transaction that comes in through the service engine. So let this build up, and I will show you. Okay. There is a drop down where you can select the time frame, if it's a past hour or 3 hours, a week, month. Okay, let's do past day. All right. There you go. Okay, so we track every transaction. So let me just open one of this. So as you can see, there is an end-to-end timing log entry. So it took 55 milliseconds for my client to reach the load balancer, or a millisecond to the server, 95 milliseconds for the app response, and a total of 151 milliseconds. And this is for every transaction that comes in. Now, on top of this end-to-end timing, we also log a bunch of client information. So what is the client IP, what port it is coming from, what is the location. So in this case, my client is coming from Canada, from an iOS system, from an iPhone. The TLS version is 1.3. So all the information about the client. Now, this information is also useful for the dev teams who are working on the application to understand their client base or to do blue-green upgrades. Then we track a bunch of information about the virtual service, the backend servers, which service engine is responding to this request, which backend server the traffic is going to. And all these blue links that you see, they act as filters. If I want to filter all the traffic that is over 95 milliseconds, I just click on it, add a filter, and I will get all those transactions. So it makes troubleshooting way easier. You don't have to do packet capture at 10 different ingress or egress points. We also have provided the option to do a packet capture if that is required, but we have made it super easy where you don't have to give manual commands on different points. So all you have to do here is select the virtual service that you want to do a capture for. So let's say Avi demo, and I want to capture it for a duration of 1 minute, right? And then you just start the capture. After a minute, you will see a file available here for the download, which you can open in Wireshark. So that's about it from the demo perspective. And now I will hand it over to Pablo to cover the migration part. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Absolutely, Pablo. That's great.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, thank you, Sally, for the demo. I agree with you. The logs part are pretty great. Okay, so talking a little bit about the integration between Avi and NSX-T. As Sally said, Avi can be integrated with multiple clouds because Avi is a multi-cloud solution. Okay, one of those cloud can be an NSX-T kind of cloud. So what is an NSX-T kind of cloud from the Avi point of view? That means that you're going to go to the Avi controller and you're going to configure the NSX-T cloud connector. The NSX-T cloud connector, as you can see here in the slide, is going to be a connection from the Avi controller to vCenter and to the NSX-T manager. That connection is going to be done using the public API from vCenter and from NSX-T. And using that connection, the Avi controller is going to be able not only to deploy VMs on vCenter and to connect those VMs or service engines to the right networks, but it's going to be able to handle and understand the objects that are configured on NSX-T, and using that to, let's say, as an example, add some static routes where those routes are needed to point to a VIP that is living on Avi, right? So that is part of the NSX Cloud Connector, and is how Avi is being integrated with NSX-T and vCenter. The idea with that is being able to handle the entire life cycle of a virtual service, right? Like adding the virtual server, deleting that, adding a server to the pool, any kind of modification that you need to do from Avi controller that is going to be impacted on vCenter and on NSX-T. Okay, now talking about the migration. How can I move from the NSX-T load balancer to Avi? We are calling the NSX-T load balancer as legacy load balancer on the documentation too. So if you see that a documentation is talking about NSX-T legacy load balancer, it's talking about the native load balancer, the one that everyone was using with NSX-T. We are going to move those services from NSX to Avi. So what if I'm using NSX-v now and I have a bunch of virtual service configured there? Okay, You should use the NSX-T migration coordinator. That is a tool that comes with NSX-T to move all your configurations and your services to NSX-T from B to T. So are you moving only the load balancing configuration with that? No, you are going to be able to move your services that are running in B. That is a platform that, as you know, is end of life, is end of support, right? So you will move your services from B to NSX-T, including your load balancing services. Then, when you are running on NSX-T, your load balancing services are going to be working, so that is not going to be broken. But when you feel comfortable to move to those services to Avi, you can run the tool that we are going to release. We are releasing this tool to move services from NSX-T to Avi. So that is going to be like in a two-step migration from B to T and then from T to Avi. Okay. If you have more doubts regarding these two-step paths, or maybe want to ask different kind of questions on the future, you can go to the website that is on the slide. That is a landing page for all of our migrations, like from F5 or from Citrix to Avi, and we're going to post information there, and even you're going to be able to contact us from that website. So changing to NSX-T, what if you're running NSX-T load balancer today? Great, you are in the best place to be, because the tool, the entire idea of the tool is to move from T to Avi. So that will really fit with your configurations. Different cases, maybe you're using NSX-T or you're using NSX-v, but you're not working with the native load balancer that NSX-v or T has integrated. It's okay, no worry about that. You don't need to migrate that. Let's think. Did you see the Sally's demo? Did you see all the great features that Avi adds on top of being just a load balancer, like the logs, like having the possibility of having like infinite capacity on that WAF? No one has infinite capacity on WAF. Okay, so go directly to Avi. Don't configure new service. Don't create greenfield scenarios on NSX-v or NSX-T, because then sooner or later you will need to move that to Avi. So deploy Avi, configure those services there, and you're all set. You don't need to change anything in the future. And again, if you need to learn, if you're thinking maybe, okay, you're telling me to go to Avi, but I don't know Avi, I know NSX. I was working with NSX-v and with NSX-T since a couple of years ago, and I feel comfortable with that. We have a lot of resources. Actually, you have a lot of resources to be able to learn Avi. We're running like 2 webinars a month. Those webinars are a basic webinar and an advanced webinar. So even you can get free training with Avi, and you can play with Avi Labs on our hands-on lab too. So don't fear about that. You're going to feel very comfortable working with Avi. I really can say that. And what if you're not directly using the NSX-T load balancer? Let's say you have services configured there, but you didn't configure that directly from NSX. Maybe other apps from the ecosystem configure that, like the Visualize Suite or Tanzu. Okay, we still working on the migration of that kind of scenarios. The tool is centered on the migration from all the load balancer objects that were directly configured to NSX-T, right? We're going to move that now, but we're still working on that migration. For more information, you can go again to the same website. We're going to keep that website updated with all the news regarding migrations. So talking a little bit about the migration tool itself. The migration tool is going to work, it's actually working on 3 stages, 3 different stages. On the first stage, what are we going to do with the app? We are going to pull all the configuration from NSX, analyze that configuration, understand it with the tool, translate it to Avi, and push it. If you want, you can push it into the Avi controller. you're not obligated to do that. You can only pull the configuration, analyze it, translate it, and keep it in a file if you want, right? So you will need to provide IPs from the IP of the NSX manager and the IP of the AVI controller. So the tool will be able to do the pull and push. You will be able to do the migration in bulk mode, like moving, translating, sorry, all the virtual services that are configured on NSX. Or if you want, you can just specify a couple or just one of the virtual services using the VS filter. The VS filter is going to the VS filter is going to help the tool knowing which virtual services you want to move. And on top of that, not as you send the demo, the AVI has a lot more features than the features that the native NSX Load Balancer has. So what if you want to add additional configurations apart from the ones that are NSX? You can use the patch option of the tool to add those configurations at the same time that the tool is pushing the migrated configuration from NSX. So that's a summary of the first phase, that is the migrate configuration phase. We are only, remember, only migrating configuration, no service, no traffic is going to be moved in this phase. On the second phase, the phase where we move the traffic, also known as the cutover, the user, you will be able to grab this tool and tell the tool, okay, I am ready, I'm comfortable now, and I want to move the traffic, not only the configuration. I want to move the traffic that is being received on NSX load balancer. I want to have that on AVI. Okay. So you as the user, you use the tool to initiate the traffic cutover. What is going to do the tool? The tool is going to grab all the virtual services that you specify that you want to move, and in a VS by VS basis, I mean one by one, not in a batch, it's going to be one by one, disabling the VIP on NSX and enabling the same VIP on AVI. The tool is not going to disable all the virtual services on NSX and then enable all on AVI. So you can expect the same amount of downtime for all the virtual services, right? It's not depending on the amount of services that you're moving. That should be the same, even if you have 1 or 1,000 VS. So at this point, and at the end of the second phase, you already moved your configuration. You added extra configuration if you were using the patch option. You already did the cutover, maybe not for every of the virtual service, maybe for 2, 3, 4, or the amount of virtual service that you specified using the VS filter option on the second phase. And let's say you feel more comfortable. You were already running that on AVI for some time, and you say, I want to clean that configuration from NSX. Okay, you don't have to do it manually. You can use the tool to do a cleanup of, again, of the virtual services that you specify using VS filter, or for all the VSs as you prefer. The tool is going to delete the virtual service and the dependent objects of that VS. So that is the third phase, when you do the cleanup of the NSX-T configuration. At the end of this phase, let's say you do that for all the VSs, you will end having no virtual services in NSX-T. You will have all your virtual services in AVI, and all the traffic is going to be flowing through AVI. Let's go to the next one. So a summary of the tool. We were designing the tool with some objectives in mind too. Like, we want to have a tool with minimal user input required. We're trying to optimize all the default values, so you as a user only have to put a couple of values there, like the IPs, the username, to access those, to access the NSX, the NSX manager or the AVI controller. And if you want, you can add the VS filter to specify which VS are you going to migrate to the cutover or actually do the cleanup. The design was thinking in the downtime, right? So we expect a minimal application downtime during the cutover because of the way in which the application is going to do the disable enable. You will have the flexibility again to do it per app or in bulk using PS filter. The third phase will allow a really easy cleanup of all the configurations on NSX-T after the cutover, and the tool in every of the phases is tire aware. I mean, it's going to understand if you're running basic tire or enterprise tire in AVI. So when is the tool going to be available? We expect to have the tool available around mid-July, on the first half of July. And where it's going to be available? The tool is going to be posted in the GitHub repository where the AVI SDK is there. So you will be able to find not only the tool, but all the documentation. We're preparing a documentation that not only explains how the tool itself is working, but it's explaining how the tool interacts with AVI and how AVI interacts with NSX-T and with all the environment. Plus that, we are going to show diagrams of the topologies working on NSX-T and how those are going to be, how those topologies, sorry, are going to look like when are migrated to AVI. So let's go to a demo of the tool itself. It's not the tool that I'm showing here is not the latest version, so you can find it some different. You can find a different look and feel maybe on the release in July, like maybe having less arguments or different prints. A little bit about the topologies first. In NSX-T, we can have inline scenarios or one-arm scenarios. What are we going to show in the doc? Something like that. On the left, we have the topology and how it looks using NSX-T, like customer outside of NSX-T. We have the server pool, and we have an inline load balancer located in the tier 1. The load balancer is just inside of the tier 1. We're going to move that to a one-arm on using the AVSC, but the traffic will still flow as if it were in line, because it's going to go through tier 0, tier 1, AVSC, and then the server pool. We have a couple of different possible scenarios, like, again, having the customer outside of NSX, the customer in the same segment. Maybe you have two different segments depending on the same tier 1, or even you can have two different tier 1s and two different segments. You can do a lot of combinations with NSX, and we're taking care of a lot of those combinations too. That is going to be really detailed on the documentations. All the topologies from NSX-T that are going to be working in this phase, and plus that, how those topologies will look when you move to AVI. These were a couple of examples from the inline scenarios, and here comes the one-arm scenario. After the one-arm scenario, we're going to move to the tool. So in a one-arm scenario, we have two different ways to connect the tier 1, but the tier 1 is a standalone tier 1. The load balancer is not on the same T1 router of NSX that is connected to T0. We have a standalone tier 1 with the VIP living on it. So this topology from NSX really looks like the topology that AVI has, because the AVSC is connected to the segment. And in this last scenario, we have an external router, so there is no T0 or T1. We have only an NSX segment, it's a VLAN box segment, and the external router plus the server pool and the AVSC are connected to the same segment. Okay, let me switch to the NSX screen here. Okay, here it is. This is the NSX screen from the one that we have on lab. If you see on load balancer, we have a couple of load balancer configured, virtual services. We have server pools too, profile and monitor are there. So let's go back to virtual servers. We are going to do the migration of almost all of the VSs that are here. We have some L7 HTTP, we have L4 TCP, L4 UDP, so SSL DNS. If we go to AVI, you will see nothing is there. It's just a plain controller, but some prerequisites are being done there, like creating the NSX Cloud Connect. Okay, I will use environment variables to pass the passwords to the application here. And on the first tab, it's just my terminal console. In the second tab, I'm connected to a router that is outside of NSX. It's like the external router that you saw on the topology. So I have set my Python path. I'm setting the NSX password and the AVI controller password. So checking that, you see that the variables are there. And right now, this is the syntax of the tool. Again, that is not the final syntax. You will not need to add parameters like BS level status or Ansible. Those are going to be a default. But here, that is asking for an extra level of detail on the log output. The Ansible is asking to create an Ansible file as output 2, no merging objects, and the best one here is the option. With the option parameter, you can say, I only want to translate the configuration and have it on a file, or I want the tool to auto-upload the configuration to the API controller. So depending the option that you pick is what you will see at the end on the API controller. So again, NSX-T manager IP, the user for the NSX-T manager, API controller IP, API controller user, and the password are being set on environment variables. We have a summary of what the tool pulled from NSX-T, how many of those are VLAN, how many are overlay, what was translated, what was skipped, and if we have something that the user needs to take care of, or maybe something that we want we want to make a heads up, we're going to show warnings there, like if some of the topology is not supported or was not able to be migrated, we're going to put a big warning there, so you can really understand what was migrated, what was not migrated, and if you need to tweak something before going to the cutoff. The tool is generating an Excel file with some reports. This is not the last version, so the last version is going to be more pretty, or actually prettier than this one. And if something was skipped, the important part is you will have the reason there. So if it was skipped because it's not supported, you will understand that that topology is not supported, or maybe that object needs some pre-work from you that was not there when the tool tried to do the migration. If you see, all the config is there, but there is no traffic enabled. I'm going to enabling real-time metrics here to be able to see the logs quick. Again, all the traffic still being on NSX, no traffic on AVI, but you're able to see the health status on AVI because AVI is actually pulling the servers on the pool and understanding if the servers are there. All the infra in AVI is ready. All the service engines were deployed to be able to handle the traffic. Okay, let's do the cutover. Again, that last argument called cutover is going to be called, in the last version actually is called BS filter. So same argument for all three stages, BS filter. Let's run a ping to the PIP to see if we lose packet or not. Okay, on the right we have that. Ping is running. And let's do the cutover. I'm specifying, I'm asking the cutover only for the BS that is called 2.6 BS in line as NAT. Okay, that was smooth, no warning, no errors, no packet loss. And in NSX, you will see that on virtual servers, that VS has no load balancer. What the tool did was detaching the load balancer from the virtual service, and plus that, changed the state to disabled. The admin state is disabled. If you go to AVI, now you will see the traffic is enabled. So the AVI controller will take care of the things that are needed to enable the traffic. Like if a static route needs to be added on NSX, to know where the VIP is, the AVI controller is going to do that. And that is relying on the NSX-T cloud connector from AVI. If you see the log, the core was handled by AVI, same kind of logs that Sally showed. And here I have a VS, a dummy VS that is there only to be deleted. So let's do a cleanup and let's ask the tool to do the cleanup of the VS that is called test clean. Again, that is going to be called VS filter. So you put VS filter, test cleanup, run the tool. Again, smooth, no warning, no errors. Let's go to NSX and see what happened there. Update the screen, and there is no test cleanup VS anymore. So those were the 3 stages. What we did here, we did the migration of the configuration, we did the cutover, we moved the traffic, and then we did the cleanup. You're going to be able to do that with, oh, sorry. Okay, you're going to be able to do that with all the VSs, or maybe just specifying a couple of VSs. Maybe you want to move all the configuration, and then you want to move the traffic like 4, 5, 10, or only 1 VS per night scheduling maintenance window. Because yes, the tool generated no packet loss, but we still recommend a maintenance window for that. Let's think connections could be dropped. So you are going to be able to do that at your pace. You will set the pace with the migration using VS filter. Do you want to know more about AVI migrations? Maybe not only NSX-T to AVI migrations. Okay, again, let's go to this website. You can see it on the shortener via vmw.com. Go to AVI, and it's the same. It's actually the same URL that was shown on the other slide. You will be able to get more information on migration and to stay up to date. If we have something new about migration, it's going to be there. It's going to be on that website. So that is the go-to website when you're thinking of migrations from every platform to AVI. And as a summary of what we saw here, do you want to discover? Do you want to see what features you will have using AVI? Okay, go to avinetworks.com. Sorry. Spanish mixed with English. avinetworks.com. You have all the KV there. You can see a lot of information about what is AVI, how AVI works, and what AVI supports actually. Do you want to learn more? Again, we have the workshops, 2 workshops, about 2 workshops a month. The basic one, the advanced one. Maybe you can do the basic one on July and the other one on August. That's on you at your pace. Again, you have to maybe you have to mix that with the actual workload that you have, and you will totally be able to do that. Do you want to try the platform? You were working with that, you read the documentation and want to try, actually touch the controller? Okay, VMware.com, go try AVI Networks. You will be pointed to one of those hands-on labs that we have. Those labs are deployed on demand. You decide when to deploy the lab, and you will have a guide to follow. That the guide will teach you step by step how to do the things. But even if you don't want to follow the guide, and maybe you wake up someday and say, I want to check that specific screen on the AVI controller. Okay, you can go there, you can launch the hands-on lab and go to that screen and check it. And do you want to try the migration tool? Okay, the migration tool is going to be posted again on VMware GitHub on the AVI SDK part. And Frank, with that, I'm finishing the part of migration. If you want to take over.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Pablo.
Thank
you, Sally. We have a ton of questions in the Q&A section, and a lot of them have been answered by some of our experts. We have Rahul and Aziz who've been answering them, but I want to ask a few of these live so everybody else can hear and see some of these questions. So let me see. Let me pick a few of the good ones. How do we go about using AVI load balancer with VCF in the management domain, for example? That's kind of a tough question, a complicated question. Rahul, do you want to try to jump in, or maybe Pablo, you want to try to answer this one?
Yeah, I can take that, Frank. Folks, so I think today already AVI has a VMware validated solution that is available, and I've pasted the link on the question. I think, Frank, if you could send that again, that would be great. So with the VMware validated solution, AVI can be used to provide load balancing on the entire VCF stack, both on the VI workload domains as well as the management workload domain. However, there is a caveat. The caveat is that VCF works with the vRealize suite via integration that VRS LCM provides. And as part of that integration, VRS LCM can operate in a mode called VCF aware mode, where VRS LCM will program VCF to essentially create LBs required by the vRealize suite. Think VRA, VROps, etc. Now, these LBs get relayed to NSX-T today. That's the case today. If customers want to use VRS LCM in the VCF aware mode, it is perfectly fine to continue using that integration. Alternatively, customers can use AVI for that use case as well. And of course, in this case, VRS LCM will not be doing the NSX-T integration, as it won't be in the VCF aware mode. Now, in a VCF 5.x release, VCF is going to bring in AVI integration. And with that, there are a couple of things that are special. The first thing is, at its base, of course, VCF is going to essentially deploy, upgrade, lifecycle, password rotate, cert rotate, all of that for AVI, all of that goodness that it does for other components, it's going to do that for AVI. That's table stakes. A couple of things that it's going to do above and beyond is, one, all AVI deployments that are following the VVS guidance on VCF stacks today, all of them will become candidates for brownfield ingestion. This is a workflow that VCF is going to support, SDDC Manager is going to support. With that, all of your existing AVI deployments on VCF will be absorbed within SDDC, and from that point onwards, those AVI deployments can be fully managed directly from SDDC Manager itself. That's one. The second is, as part of this integration, VRS LCM, as it programs VCF, and VCF actually programs LBs on NSX-T, that integration is going to change, where VRS LCM will continue to essentially say, hey, I want a LB for VRA, but instead of going to NSX-T LB, VCF will talk to AVI and program those LBs on AVI. So that's sort of your path. So today, follow VVS to deploy AVI on VCF for any load balancing requirement. If you're using VRS LCM and VCF aware mode, continue to use NSX-T LB. We will provide a automated migration path for that when VCF integrates with AVI in a 5.x release. With 5.x, you will see AVI fully automated in your VCF stack, and also will be able to absorb AVIs that you have deployed today.
Awesome. That's a great and very thorough answer, Rahul, and I hopefully answers the question for the person who's asking it and all the details. Here's another question. I'm going to step back a little bit, and this is one I think that's of interest to me personally, and I think to a lot of other people is AVI an option of load balancing when we have vSphere with Tanzu on NSX-T? And I'm going to throw in my little follow-up. How does that correlate to if we want to use like a VRO or VRA for orchestration and automation. Can you go into that? Rahul, do you want to take that one, or
Sure.
maybe?
Yeah, I can take that one. I think let me start with the VRA piece, I guess. A little background. So Avi is built as a product platform for automation, and with that, the foundation is to provide orchestrators that are full-fledged in respect to feature sets, and essentially can automate the entire API spec. What I mean by that is, if there is a setting that you can tune using Avi CLI, using Avi UI, you should be able to tweak those same settings using raw REST APIs, using SDKs like Python, Go, Java, etc., or using orchestrators such as Ansible, Terraform, Salt, VRO, and that's available today. When it comes to VRA, today the integration is through a VRO workflow. So the way it works is, in VRA you create custom blueprints, and these custom blueprints you get access to the entirety of what Avi provides. If you want to configure WAF, you can do it. If you want to configure GSLB, you can do it. So you will create a custom blueprint, and with the custom blueprint, you will essentially hook up your VRO workflows, which is where the meat resides. That's the integration that is available today. With VRA team, we are working on providing the same level of functionality natively using native blueprints, not custom blueprints that is being scoped out right now. The goal is really to provide a full-featured orchestration layer that kind of simplifies work for our customers, because if we only provide partial automation, then some features can go through the orchestrator and some others have to be done by some other means, manually, UI, CLI, or maybe using raw REST, etc. So that's on the VRA part. And on the other part was Tanzu integration with vSphere. So today Avi already supports natively. Avi has a Kubernetes operator framework called AKO, Avi Kubernetes Operator, that sits within your kube clusters, listens to LB and ingress notifications, and configures Avi to provide ingress L7, L4 load balancing as your front door for your kube clusters. Now that integration is already available, has been GA for a while with vSphere networking within vSphere. We are also today it also works with NSX-T networking, albeit the service engines will need to be provisioned, pre-provisioned for that integration to work. But once service engines are provisioned, all of the other bits work exactly the same. With vSphere 8 patch release this year, later this year, we are bringing in the same level of automation where you can have automated scale out of your infrastructure, service engines, etc. All of that goodness is coming with vSphere 8 patch release, available with vSphere, available on vSphere with NSX-T networking.
Awesome. That's a great answer. I appreciate that. And Saley, I have a question for you because I think this one is in your wheelhouse, if you don't mind. How would this impact customers using VMware Cloud and other public cloud offerings? How does the Avi and VMware integration work with the clouds like AWS, GCP, or Azure?
Good question. So we have something called as a cloud connector. So once you deploy the Avi controller, the first thing you will do is give its access to, let's say you have AWS, so you provide the API endpoint for that environment by giving it, let's say, using IAM roles or your secret access key. So you connect your Avi controller with AWS. Similarly, if you have GCP, you will give credentials to that environment, and we use that API to talk to different public clouds or on-prem environments. Hope that answers the question.
Absolutely. And the cool thing here, at least, and I'm going to add on a little bit, is that Avi was really designed to be software-based, cloud, multi-cloud centric. So dealing with the Avi technology within the different clouds should be fairly, I'm going to use a marketing term here, seamless. for you as the operator, because we do the abstraction to provide the load balancing services, no matter what the infrastructure is that you're putting those services on. So let me see here. I'm going to get to one more question here, and I'm going to go to you, Pablo, if you don't mind. And we have a lot of questions about the testing and, I mean, the tool and the things. So here's a question. When we migrate from NSX-T to AVI and we use the tool, do we retain all the layer 7 configurations like SSL certificates, sticky sessions, cookies, rules, etc.? How does that work? Can you give us some insight, Pablo?
Yes, no the cookies, because those are generated by AI, but the tool is going to take care of the certificates and of the rules that you have configured on your load balancer in NSX, and it's going to convert and move that configuration to AVI.
Awesome. So pretty much, besides the cookies, which are specific to the individual pieces, everything's going to migrate over. You don't have to worry about anything. The tool is going to be, as I like to say, and from the American infomercial world, kind of a set it and forget it type thing. You run the tool, you migrate, and everything's just going to pretty much work out of the box for you, right?
Yes, that's the idea. Plus, we are planning to do more releases in the future. So if something is not catched on the first release, you will see, or you can see that. You will probably see that on the next releases.
Awesome, greatly appreciated. And absolutely, obviously, this tool, this migration tool, will be supported by VMware and the AVI team. So any changes or updates or added features will certainly be included as this tool is used and rolled out in the future. So thank you, everybody, for attending this webinar. We have a lot of great questions. If we did not answer your question during the Q&A or online, we will certainly follow up with you and get more input for you. So again, appreciated attending this webinar, and hopefully we'll see you at the next one. Thank you very much. Everybody have a great day.